Welcome to Idle Red Hands Weekly. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Chris.
And this week on the Weekly, Game of Thrones plays D&D, Indomitus, the Warhammer 40k 9th edition box, Magic Cards banned, Legend of Vox Machina Series delayed, and the Kentucky Fried Game console. So how's it going?
Yeah, okay. Definitely in the rainy season.
Yes.
And not great riding a bike
Right.
to drop your kid off at daycare.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I saw some pretty unhappy old ladies on scooters in the downpour yesterday. I can't imagine one of them taking a spill, though, because, it gets pretty slippery.
Yeah. I think with all the old ladies you see driving around on bikes, or just old people in general, I think the thing that holds them up is pure spite.
I think so.
It's not balance. It's just, you look at them, and some of them are going so incredibly slow, you're like, I have no idea how you're staying up, other than utter contempt for gravity.
Exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of that, their husbands and gravity are the two things that they have no respect
All
for.
right, I was trying to steer it away from that, but okay. I'm not saying you're wrong. Yeah.
But there's a charity event.
Ooh.
D&D Live 2020 is putting on, it's a D&D Live 2020 Roll with Advantage. It's going to reunite some cast members from the Game of Thrones series.
Yeah, I saw that.
So Daniel Portman, Podrick, Gemma Whelan, Yara Greyjoy, Ewan Rion, who played Ramsay, and then Christian Narn, who was Hodor. Oh yeah, and then also Natalia Tena, who was Osha. So basically, that little group of people that kind of drug Bran around all over. I guess they had a lot of spare time, so they probably picked up D&D as a hobby.
Yeah, it makes sense.
The game designer for D&D, Kate Well, going to run that. I thought that was an odd combination and pretty funny, but we've seen so much of that. We've talked a lot about celebrities role playing, so I think it's good for charity because it gets eyeballs and probably gets people watching and hopefully gets donations. And this is in association with the fundraising similar to Comic Relief in the US and the UK. So it's a UK event, Red Nose Day, I think. I've seen a lot of comedians with that foam nose on as promotional photos. This event is promising even more excitement. So in the future, they will have celebrities role playing, and it's all D&D, of course. So cast members from Daredevil, Amy Acker of The Gifted, YouTube star Felicia Day, as if she hasn't done enough role playing. Yeah. Doctor Who and Guardians of the Galaxy, Karen Gillan, Stranger Things, Brett Gilman and David Harbour, and WWE wrestlers. Alexa Bliss and Xavier Woods. So really rolling out the big guns there.
Well, you know what? I saw, because being in tabletop role-playing game communities, even if they're not about D&D, you can't avoid D&D news. Right. So that did come across my radar. And at first I was like, oh, more celebrities, air quotes. Well, hey, they're more famous than I am, so I should probably take back those air quotes. More celebrities playing D&D. My initial reaction was, this is dumb. We've kind of seen a lot of this, and I'm getting kind of tired of it. Then I was like, oh, but it's for charity, so okay.
Yeah.
People like D&D, so I'm not going to say it being for charity makes it better. But for me, that kind of said, okay, it's for a cause. You're going to get celebrities to do something. Why not have it be D&D, which people like and is really popular and raise money for a good cause? So that stayed my thumbs and started typing on the keyboard to send out some kind of snarky tweet, but I'm like, no, it's fine.
Right. You're not really watching it for a quality role-playing experience because maybe a lot of these people aren't even into anything tabletop, but might be funny. It might be funny to watch them kind of clumsily try to grasp the rules or what they're supposed to be doing. And because most of them are actors, so I guess professional wrestlers are actors too.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
So most of them are actors. They're going to actually have a thought about what kind of character they're playing and things. It'll be entertaining, which I think that's why they're doing it. And it's associated with a comedy event. It's a comedy charity, so I don't think they're taking it completely seriously. You
know what? I wonder what a completely serious for charity role-playing game event would be. And I wonder if that would work. Because, I've only seen a little bit of it. A little bit of Acquisitions Inc. That I watched that, plays at Gen Con. And a little bit of Critical Role that I've watched. It seems more entertaining and kind of jokey than an actual game.
Right.
And I wonder if people are turning up to see their favorite people play a game rather than watch a game. Yeah, which I think is the case. So would a, air quote, serious actual play of a game work as a charity event? I don't know.
Yeah, and probably not. I don't think because it wouldn't get very far outside of the fan. But yeah, I think basically actual play podcasts are kind of having that covered. I've heard some really great kind of dramatically presented and probably, they did some post, where they like recorded lines and things so they could get a good read, the things that didn't happen at the table. But I've heard some really good presentations lately of very serious and kind of, either grimdark settings or horror settings. They came across really well, and they weren't just they weren't screwing around. And
which is the reason why you've not heard that many actual plays from us.
Right.
Because the amount of post that would have to go into it would be horrific. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And the amount of alcohol that, goes
during
on.
and after the game. Yeah.
Well, we finally got a look at, it's not really a starter set, but the starter set for 9th edition.
Okay. I've not seen it yet, so I'm all ears.
Oh, cool. So it's, as we all suspected, Space Marines versus Necron, and it's a redesign of the Necron and then some kind of newer versions of Primaris, and it's all Primaris Space Marines in the box.
All Primaris. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, are we surprised?
No. I think that was kind of expected, and they're not saying don't play your old little mini Marines.
Mini Marines, my goodness.
But they're kind of pushing, they're pushing the scale of everything towards Primaris anyhow, because I think even the like recent Chaos releases and stuff, and even the Sisters of Battle were a bit bigger than I would have expected. So everything's kind of like not trying to be too...
Well, I mean... Anyone who goes through that HRT process to be turned into a super soldier, regardless of gender, is going to be huge, you know, compared to your little Imperial Guardsman. But curious about what you thought of the redesign of the Necrons. Because I came across something, and I came across a picture. Couldn't tell if it was a new resculpt or an old one, because the bog standard Necron troops never really struck me as being that dynamic or interesting, but they're metal skeletons, so really what can you do with them? Right. So do they look any different, and do they look more dynamic?
A bit. They kind of are going away from the Egyptian theme into the more like, I mean, it is still space Egyptian, but it's not so blatant, and it's more stylized, and so it's more like strange alien powers, alien energy, and it's looking a little different. And the straightforward, just the warriors, Necron warriors, are looking more shambly, like they're kind of breaking them up. They're covering them, and they're even coming out, I think, with a new paint to kind of distress the surface of them.
Interesting.
So to make them look like they have been buried, like they're not going to be shiny, and they're not going to look like the Terminator with his flesh burned off.
Why not? You don't know what kind of metal Necrons are made from. Maybe it doesn't tarnish or age.
Right. That's true. It's all stainless steel. So they're coming up. They've got a more kind of shambly look, like a lot of plates and things off of them. The one thing that's kind of kept me away from Necron is the head. And I'm sure there's Necron players nobody wants to hear this. Right. But that head
looks like the ABC robot from the Stallone version of Judge Dredd.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Or like a Tim Burton, like Nightmare Before Christmas. You know, the shape of it is like a weird stylized skull.
Yep. Okay.
And it's got that mouth that's just a line and three.
Yeah, the three hatch
marks.
Yeah.
And it's like they can kind of push that, right? Like one way or another, to give it a reason, or give it some, like it's a symbol, or it's just a some kind of crack or broken metal or something. But no, it's just like this little etched mouth with little teeth.
It's not like they use the mouth, right?
Right. But it's odd. I mean, I think they would be more menacing if they got away from kind of looking like a stylized human skull and more into a bizarre, kind of alien.
Yeah, I mean,
but I guess the origins of it, though, I guess it is more related to humanoid.
Maybe.
So that might be the thing. But yeah, it wasn't a major step. It's just giving them more detail, because I think the sculpting that they can do now allows you to do a lot of intricate and interesting detail. And they wanted to add something to those.
And like the Primaris Marines, they need a way to say, your models are old.
Right.
Your models are old. Get them out of here. Use these new ones. Yeah.
So the box itself is called Indomitus, and it's not really a starter set.
Okay.
It's much closer to the Sisters of Battle release that they did.
Okay.
So there's no dice, there's no rulers. It does include the core rules, and this is probably going to be the first way you can actually get the core rules. If you pre-order this, you're going to be the first person looking at the actual book, the rule book for 9th edition, and so that's probably part of the gimmick. It's an interesting move, and it's funny because they just had a thing. They just released the statement that said, we're not interested if you're not, participating in this community in an open way, we're not interested in you participating. But this not being a starter set means it's not going to get new people. You have to be established in the game to play this set, basically, because it's not going to be, I think, enough. It's a little bit too, the units are a little bit too advanced. I don't think it's going to be as complete a starter set as some of the previous boxes. And those boxes had dice and rulers.
Right.
So it's funny that they're not making this a strict, it's more of a celebration box and not a starter set.
What's the price tag?
And the price, I think they were talking about £150. So I'm not sure what that's going to equal, probably to something, in US dollars.
Well, yeah.
But it'll be pricey. But they're saying, though, that this is giving you basically, and like most of these boxes do, they're all monopose, all original new sculpts, like things that have never been released before. And it's about a 50% discount from the price, the suggested retail price that you're going to get if they release them separately.
Right. Do you think they will do a more proper starter set? Because I think what you said is this is people who are already established, and if 9th edition is not supposed to be that big of a departure from 8th edition, do you really, well, I mean, the answer is yes, you need a starter set to onboard people, but they're pretty clearly targeting people who are already established and just want the latest version of the rule set.
And like the Sisters of Battle box, this is going to be limited. They're not going to keep it in print. So they're going to produce an original batch, or a huge, initial batch. And then as soon as those are sold out, there's no more. Whereas something like Dark Imperium or the previous starter sets, they keep them in print. So throughout the whole edition, that's the place where they want people to start. So yeah, it's a little bit different. And they may be releasing a smaller scale, more like a First Strike and some of the tinier boxes that they did that were really just a tutorial kind of set that had like maybe 4 or 5 models for each side and were a way to start to actually just like basically learn the rules, learn the phases of, shooting and moving. And so they may be doing something like that for a starter set to just make the entry point really cheap as opposed to, something that's a lot of plastic.
Interesting. Apart from that one game and reading the book, I do not have that much experience with Kill Team. Do you think the 9th edition change will affect Kill Team? And do you think Kill Team is meant to be the introductory product?
They've promised that Kill Team is not going to be affected by this, but one of the first things that they said was this scales all the way down to patrol level. So basically Kill Team. So they want this version of 40K to scale a lot better and like basically let you play during your lunch break, like have it small enough where you can just do patrol versus patrol and finish it.
Nobody saw my eyebrows raised like well past my head because who is playing a game of anything 40K during your lunch break? Who has the space?
So I thought that was interesting. And that was my first concern is like, well, is that going to be the end of Kill Team? In the FAQ, they said it's not going to be. And I think, Kill Team is basically going to keep 8th edition rules because they've made significant changes already. So as far as as far as 9th edition, it's going to be noticeably different from Kill Team. The Overwatch rules and things are going to be completely different. Overwatch is not an automatic thing. It's a stratagem and you can do it with 1 unit per turn and it costs 1 CP. So it's much more, so real shooty armies can't just keep melee, units.
Not too bad I'm not playing Tyranids anymore because that was like the bane of my existence. Like, oh, really? All
right. Some of those things that are changing are going to really change the thinking. And so maybe they're going to become very different games as well. Because Kill Team does have a specific, and especially because you're doing alternating activations and you're not playing a whole turn and then now it's your whole turn, now it's my whole turn. Because you're not doing that, it's going to kind of define itself as a different game. And I'm not sure. It's similar enough that it could be still an introductory to 40K. But I think if you really like that game, I don't know if you ever want to scale it up. If you like that small,
someone with no space and no time scaling up to another Warhammer 40K. No.
Right. So does this mean that Games Workshop is actually happy with their older fans, or are they?
I think they are, but I think Games Workshop knows that loyal fans will continue to pay whatever prices and pretty much buy whatever they put out.
Yeah,
unless they did something horrific.
Right.
But I mean, given their long history of price hikes, rules edition changes and whatever, the people who've stuck with it, what else could Games Workshop do to drive them off? I don't know.
8th edition was a big, I heard saw many people online talking about coming back for 8th edition because it was such a big change and smooth things out. I guess just kind of simplified things in a way that made them curious to try it again. And so some people did come back to the hobby. So yeah, maybe that's why they're not making a big change.
You're telling me people don't want to go back to like 2nd edition with those like warp power cards you had to store up and toss down, and I'm like, well, let me save up 3 for my zone, throw a blast, or those armor rolls for the old tanks where you're rolling all kinds of dice. Yeah, people didn't like that.
We'll see how this does. I'm sure it's going to sell out just because so many people scalp, Games Workshop stuff anyhow. So it's guaranteed. So you played Magic the Gathering back in the day, right?
I did. Did it up until about 2007. Because I was playing for about a year and a half-ish after coming to Japan.
Oh, cool.
And then the tournaments here were radically different, only lasted 3 rounds and were not that satisfactory. And I dropped out around the time core sets switched to yearly releases. And I said, I can't keep up with this anymore. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm surprised how expensive of a hobby it became. But early on, too, I just remember, because I played it very early on, just because it showed up at like comic book stores, like there'd be Magic cards there. Like, what's this? And it did become very pay to win before it had established.
As someone who dropped $100 on 4 pieces of cardboard back in the Ravnica for that black-white angel. Yeah, it is play to win or pay to win. Yeah,
right. So did you have each? So the game, it's a collectible card game that's kind of a 2-player battle game and composed of 5 colors.
Yep.
And did you keep those colors?
We've
separated?
lost all Magic cred if you had to ask those 5 colors in Magic.
Did you keep those colors, in their own sections and in either binders or boxes when you stored them?
We had the big boxes that were divided by set and by color.
Okay.
Which got real messy when you got to Ravnica with those multicolor things. It was like,
that's right,
here's white, here's black, here's blue, here's green, here's red, here's the 2-color combinations, here's the 3-color combinations, and over here is the 5. Yeah.
Right. So ever since that time, you have been segregating your cards based on color.
I should have smelled that setup coming. Yes, I have.
So there's been a banned list released by WotC, by Wizards of the Coast. This is not unusual because for play of the game, just like any other card game, restricted lists, banned lists cards are released just to kind of protect overpowered cards or things, kind of mechanical balance changes that they want to make in the game. Maybe cards that have dominated at a tournament or something. They want to let you have just one of those or maybe none of those. But a new type of list was just released. Wizards of the Coast released a now banned list of... So they released a list of 7 cards. The first one, and the one that I think that got the most attention, was called Invoke Prejudice.
Yes.
And it pretty obviously was someone kind of playing around. And this is, I think back in the day, early on, basically they had the rules for a card, the name for a card, handed that to an artist and said, go for it. This does this, and it's called this. Use your imagination. And of course, fantasy illustrators are from all different parts of the country and they have all different...
Which is a nice way of saying it. Yeah. I also think earlier Magic sets did not have the sort of cohesiveness that later Magic sets did, where it's like they hadn't really established... Because I started with Magic when it first came out, and there wasn't much to Dominaria other than it's a fantasy world. And I think there were outside references to like real world stuff, especially when you got to like the joke sets like Unglued or whatever.
Right.
But I think now they're much more internally consistent. Like this is the world, and they have those like, world Bibles.
Right.
Nothing can deviate
Yes.
from these styles, where you didn't have that in early Magic.
Right. Yeah. When we talked about the setting book that they released for D&D, they said, we do these world Bibles. And so they do have so much information for the setting of each of these sets. And of course, that's something they didn't have before. And so these cards are from that era. They are...
I think you got like an Arabian Nights card in there as well. Okay. And like maybe first edition.
I don't think it makes sense to delete these from the database, to expunge these things like they never existed. I think they need to fess up to, it was a different time. They weren't paying attention. There wasn't sensitivity. There wasn't the sensitivity, and there weren't people focused on sensitivity like there are now in different entertainment. So these things should still exist. It's like, wow, we've come a long way. And if there's just a blank page, no image found, when they look up this card, I think, they're misrepresenting where their company came from.
I agree. And like, I haven't followed up on this all that closely because I don't play Magic anymore. But I think I saw someone kind of responding to the fact that like a card named like Jihad or something is on that list. Right. They said that Arabian Nights was the first set where they'd seen their culture portrayed as like a major kind of fantasy setting, and not necessarily in a negative way. And so Jihad getting removed just kind of because of what it's called is kind of erasure. And I agree with you. We kind of had a discussion before where like Warner Brothers has put like announcements or title screens at the front of their cartoon saying, these cartoons you're about to see are a product of their time and display stereotypes that we now consider to be unacceptable. Or I think it said like they were unacceptable at the time and they're still unacceptable now, but to edit or erase them would to be a disservice and to kind of pretend that we hadn't done this and it didn't exist, which I kind of see Magic doing the same, or in WotC doing the same thing by blacking out or removing these cards from the register. It's like, instead of doing that, put something out that says these were wrong at the time, or we kind of weren't paying attention. We've come a long way, as you said, and we'll make sure, not even make sure they won't happen in the future, because that, who knows what's going to happen in the future. But to say, to blank these out is to almost kind of forget that we did this, which is something we shouldn't be doing.
Right. It also, for me, it brought up the fact that this is just focusing on, and because, Magic cards are in many, many languages internationally, this is focusing very much on kind of North American concepts of racism and prejudice and bias. That if you're going to look worldwide, there's going to be a huge variety of things that you're not going to be able to account for, and things that people aren't going to understand as offensive, and terms that have kind of developed in a language, not English, that people use in prejudice against each other. And one of the things that might be one of those, do you know what the problem is with stone throwing devils?
I do not.
People were questioning that because it's not specifically referencing any, race problem or anything that kind of makes sense in a North American context or American context. And someone brought up the fact online that they are claiming that this is a derogatory term that is used against Palestinians by Israelis.
Okay. If knowing that information, I can say, okay, yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's, if that's actually, documented or true, but what other border conflicts and ethnic conflicts are going to come into, it seems like it will be endless. Once you start, I can understand if, like, specifically Invoke Prejudice was a little bit of a hidden troll, because even when they assigned the number, that was another thing that when they assigned the number in the whatever that categorized in the classic cards, they used a specifically racist number set for the 1488, which So that was, so either somebody saw that or knew the intention of the artist or whatever. So that kind of stuff shouldn't be hidden, shouldn't be encoded, in any game's card database. But something like Cleanse card is, the words for that card are destroy all black creatures. And I think that, especially at this time, that's a little bit inciting or a little bit strange, but that means that there is also a card out there that's probably destroy all white creatures. And that's not going anywhere. So it's like, if we're going to talk about, like, you shouldn't be saying things that kind of trigger people or make them
offended.
Yeah, that offend people because of kind of how that sounds. I mean, maybe you should get rid of black and white, and maybe you should, not be using color words that we also in English use as skin color words or, or racial terms. It seems like that is a place you're going to have to start, because you're going to have all these strange things that are going to say, whatever, count the number of black cards, count the number of white cards, whichever one is the most. There's all these weird mechanics that can possibly come up.
I hadn't considered those because I didn't look at the entire list. All I know is kind of that Invoke Prejudice one and Jihad. I think I saw someone bring up, rather than like the name of the card, or also like, if you're going to do this, what about artists that have been discovered to be problematic?
Yeah, that's true. So if it's not,
you kind of you can't really separate art from artists anymore now. And I'm sure there are some people, magic artists, who's ended up being toxic people. And it's like, if you're going to get rid of these because of what they're called, why will you not also get rid of these because of who made them?
Right.
So I don't know. Like I understand that maybe WotC had to do something. I think removing the card image kind of feels a bit like you're trying to sweep the problem under the rug and kind of say like it doesn't exist, which maybe just a statement of some kind of plan of action where you're more mindful of the stuff in the future and hold these up as examples of what you're going to try and not do anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's difficult because it will become very, very complicated then to actually, is this okay? Is this okay? Because these things have to go to press. Like, these aren't digital things that they can just copy over. These have to be printed and they have to be warehoused. It's like, we just printed 10,000 of what now?
Well, then by all means, like, start hiring sensitivity readers or kind of consultants. Right. Because one thing that we kind of felt towards the end of Netrunner was it felt like cards were rushed. But one thing that Magic cards to me never felt rushed, and for the while that I was following like development blogs, like these things are developed like years in the future to hit those printing deadlines. So I don't think it would be impossible to put a sensitivity reader in that process. It's not going to delay things like another year. So
yeah, that's true. So the statement that was released by Wizards of the Coast, specifically about Invoke Prejudice. They said the card is racist and made even worse by its multiverse ID. It was unfortunately codified with years ago. So their Wizards said there is no place for racism in our game nor anywhere else. So they made a strong statement against what they found in their cards. But I think it's going to be endless with it. How language evolves, and especially on the internet, how people start using different terms to mean different things, or kind of want to encrypt,
reclaim something,
reclaim something, or hide something, hide intent or hide meaning in something. They're going to start using words that, eventually green is going to be something that we might have difficulty with because, culturally it's going to be significant in some way. So I don't think they're endlessly going to be running into this. It's difficult to know. It's like things that are very obvious you have to do something about, but there are going to be sensitivities that are going to get so granular that you're like, oh, so if we use the comma in this ability, then you're uncomfortable. It seems like it could get to the point where it's going to be really hard to produce physical products. It's like, well, let's just stick with the digital game because we can instantly edit that.
Someone who hated the digital game. No, thank you.
Yeah, this is just, I think, mostly a product of that older time, and probably will happen less in the future because, when they're writing these world Bibles and things, they're going to, let's not do this. This reads a little strange. Yeah,
you would hope they would.
Yeah. So I think that's it's less likely to happen in the future, but the sensitivities are going to keep changing. This is going to be a constant, job of maintaining what's going on. So as part of our Critter update, we have some news.
Okay.
There was some news in the Critical Role world. The Legend of Vox Machina has been delayed.
Do you know how long? And refresh my memory, that's the animated series.
Yes, that is the kickstarted $12 million kickstarted series that Amazon has claimed that they have already bought or greenlighted, as well as a second season that doesn't even have funding or is whatever. But there were a few suspicious things in this article about this delay.
Really? Okay.
And it's like, wow, we're making some weird assumptions, and it's a little bit scarier than I thought. So the series will not be debuting in fall 2020 as originally anticipated, in part due to the pandemic.
Okay.
Right. So obviously that's
so
understandable.
Far, so good. Yeah.
And it's doesn't really take much time. And I moved design department offices in a single day, and we were back up and running. And if they're going to claim that animators taking their PCs home is going to cause a significant delay in a production of a series, that's a little bit questionable. And they also said that their animation team, so they're transitioning to working at home, adapting to this environment.
Okay.
Additionally, the desire to provide proper localization and accessibility for a global audience has also led to delays.
So I read that as they're throwing deaf people under the bus by saying it's taking a long time to add subtitles.
Right. Yeah. You guys are causing. Yeah. So, I think they're local. So they probably want to translate it into more languages, get it more ready for Amazon as a global, but that wasn't. See, this is the problem with Kickstarter projects. You don't anticipate that at the beginning of this. This isn't part of the
Obviously
production.
Don't.
Yeah. So that's a little bit odd. And so then they said,
well, I'll jump in here to be fair. Okay. Critical Role is an English language franchise.
Yes.
I'm assuming most, if not all, of their audience speaks English.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know if the actual podcast or the show you want to call it now is translated into other languages apart from fans doing it.
Right.
So do you think this is a result of Amazon or whatever, or some other big name company kind of attaching on to this and then wanting to make it as accessible to the rest of the world as possible,
right.
Where when Critical Role did it, we're like, okay, we're only going to do it, and I'm not saying they said this, but we're only going to do this in English because that's the audience that's listening. Right. And then you have this giant company go, nope, we want to distribute it everywhere and make more money off it. So it's got to have multiple languages.
Yeah, no, there's been precedent for that, definitely. But that's definitely not what the Kickstarter backers pledged for. They didn't pledge for an Amazon series. They pledged for just to see this animation. So they also talked about, getting the voice actors to work remotely is delaying things. And so there is no updated release date. They'll get it to you as soon as they have it. That's very worrying.
I'll agree with you there. Yeah.
The other interesting thing that this article said is, so Amazon Prime has announced that they picked up the show for their streaming service and have already renewed it for a second season. So the backers of the Kickstarter campaign will still have access to the episodes initially funded by the campaign, even if they don't have a streaming service. So I was like, what now? Amazon picked this up. So are they saying that if they blow this deadline badly enough, Amazon's like, yeah, we're done here?
I read that as Amazon saying, this is ours now, and we're going to put it on a streaming service. But Kickstarter backers, don't worry. You'll still get the thing you backed, even if you don't have an Amazon streaming service.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe they'll provide it as like some files or whatever, download.
So referring to they of the backers. Okay, that makes more sense. When I first read that, I was like, they as in the production don't have a streaming service.
No, I didn't. I didn't think it that way. It's like
no, it is. Yeah, it is the backers. So they're reassuring the backers they don't have to subscribe to something to see this.
Because that would be like a real kick in the teeth.
Oh yeah.
Like this is ours now. We're going to stream it only. Oh, you're a backer without a streaming service. Better get on that.
Yeah. So rest assured, everybody that's awaiting that, we don't have a date yet, but it's coming. So sure. I'm curious to see.
I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, so we recently saw the release of the new Xbox, whatever it's called, the Xbox X, whatever it's called, and the PlayStation 5.
Okay.
Right, and those were the release of those were just online events because of the current pandemic, right? So everything is a streaming thing. And KFC, to take advantage
streams chicken
of all the hype and everything, they jumped on board, and their genius brand manager released the following statement. At KFC, we've been astounded by the gaming community's amazing response to everything we've done, and we have to give back with something truly incredible. We wanted to give gamers the best gaming experience on the market with the convenience of home chicken supply, so that the KFC console, so the C is shared by the word, was born. We can't wait to get it into our fans' hands later this year. So they produced, not quite at the level of like Sony or Microsoft, but they produced a trailer that showed a bucket of chicken, and it kind of transformed into a, black monolithic gaming console.
Okay.
That has like specs, 4K, 120 FPS, talking about the specs of this amazing console. And it has a chicken warming compartment in the bottom. And it's this all just nonsense. And it's like a lot of articles have called it a troll, but those articles have disappeared from the website. So who knows what this is. They gave a release date of November 12th, 2020. So this is just nonsense. I mean, this is even a worse kind of nonsense. I mean, actually, Wendy's actually produced their nonsense RPG. Like that was actually, they actually made a physical book. They made a PDF, and then there was actually supposedly a physical book.
Okay, I know where this is going. How much chicken are you prepared to eat when the KFConsole actually rolls out on November 8th?
Well, if it keeps the chicken warm, but this kind of like trash marketing. I mean, I understand this makes sense for their brand because their brand is trash. That's trash food. And to have this kind of ridiculous, like, trolling, spoofy kind of marketing is going to get attention because already people are new game console. So they're going to get search engine positioning and things for talking about this nonsense.
I'm laughing because you know who else is talking about this nonsense?
Who?
Us.
Oh, that's true. So we're
Their marketing ploy worked.
They're
right. Spreading the news.
Yeah. But it's just getting really tiring though, that it's just like, oh yeah, this is a hobby. This is a thing. Let's throw something. But it costs money to produce that stupid trailer that they made. And I can't see that. And when I was trying to think of, so which fast food company did that RPG? Who was that? It took me thinking all the way through all of the art, and there was a redhead female fighter. That must have been Wendy's. I mean, I had the brand and that stupid gimmick had completely separated. So that's pretty ineffective because it doesn't persist. I don't remember. Oh, Wendy's was the one that did that.
Meanwhile, I can't forget about that dumb thing.
It took me a while to even recall who did that. Just like this nonsense. It's like, oh yeah, what fast food restaurant did it?
You'll remember it once you have that console with a chicken warming compartment on your desk.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that greasy.
Oh man, imagine if it does smell like KFC.
Can just kind of confine this nonsense to April 1st. Do we constantly need to be
no,
having these reveals?
Because most consumers ignore anything that happened on April 1st.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they're aware now. Yeah, great.
This is the physical version of the Steakums Twitter account putting out those like philosophy things, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. So where can people find you?
On Twitter, as always, where I'm currently thinking up another Wretched and Alone game jam based on the 2001 French movie Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Oh, cool. Nice.
That's Hivemind. HYVEMYND. How about you?
I do a single panel gag cartoon that I live stream on Monday nights, North American time, and that's on Twitch and YouTube. Abusecartoons.com is the website. You can follow the cartoon on Twitter at Abusecartoons, and the archive is gocomics.com/domesticabuse. If you want to see more about the Idle Red Hands podcast, please visit idleredhands.com. Follow us on Twitter at idleredhands. And if you want to get involved with the podcast and support what we're doing, especially our lore videos, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/idleredhands. But one more thing before we go, I backed just in time. I think there was like 2 days left. I backed the itch.io racial justice bundle, and that's no longer available. So I had to open an account for that, and now I have a gigantic library of
really?
Of game. It's
close to like 1,800 things.
Yeah. It's
I think the way it works is it's they're not actually in your library yet because there's so many of them. You actually have to go to the product page and say download, because I know Itch said we don't want to flood your library with these things. Where only the ones you choose to kind of download will be added to your library, but you still have access to all of them. Yeah.
That's great. But the one thing that I noticed going through, so this is the first time I've done a lot of extensive downloading through Itch, and it was both games and comics and RPGs, and also assets for game development. One thing I noticed that I think creators are doing more recently that they need to stop doing and pay attention to is sometimes you get a tone in just about anything, comics or movies or anything, of the creators having contempt for their audience.
Okay.
And they have an agenda that they want to get across, and that is more important than the work itself. And I don't think that any creator is talented enough to actually hide their agenda anyhow. It will come out. It is part of you. It is part of your work. So people will absorb that through the creativity of your storytelling, the mechanics of your game, the sound of your music. Like they will know that. And so to be heavy-handed with that, I think is just going to confine your creative work to a point in time. And the idea is to be timeless, and the idea is to resonate and to go beyond your life and to go beyond your age in something that came directly from you. And any tone of self-righteousness or whatever you're trying to do in your work, it's already there. It's part of you, and you don't need to put it up front, and you don't need to try to sell something on that basis. So anyhow, this brings me to an E.M. Forrester quote. So E.M. Forrester is a very bourgeois British writer, and he wrote in the 30s, but he was incredibly anti-fascist. I like a lot of his thinking about creativity.
Okay.
Here's a quick quote. "Only connect. That was the whole of her sermon. Only connect the prose and the passion, and both will be exalted, and human love will be seen at its height. Live in fragments no longer. Only connect. And the beast and the monk, robbed of the isolation that is life to either, will die." Yeah, so that's it for this week. So we will be back next week.
Later, mortals.
Goodbye.